Joe, I
Yes.
want to hear from you first. So will you tell everybody what happened to you? You know, because you were diagnosed with Bell's palsy.
Yes. So I was on the way home from a field trip with my son, and he's looking at me funny, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, why are you blinking with one eye?" And I thought it was strange. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." A few minutes later, I was talking to him. He said, "Dad, only half your mouth is working." And I was like, "Oh, that's probably not good." And about 10 minutes later, we pulled up to school. I went right to the hospital. And they thought it was a stroke and a big shutdown. They were just grabbing me, pulling me. I was panicked, but so it wound up being that's what it was, Bell's palsy. So, so I thought the worst, but I had called you, and you said, "Oh my God, you have to see Gabby."
Hold right
And
there. They sent you home. What did they say to you? Did they give you a timeline? Did they tell you they could cure
yeah,
you?
okay.
Tell me what they said.
They explained what it was, and I said, "Okay, is it going to get better?" And they said it could get better in 3 weeks. It could get better in 6 weeks. It might not get better at all. And they said it came out of my ear, and you know, so I was supposed to follow up with, I believe, a neurosurgeon. And when I went to get the appointment, they said because of my insurance, uh, I couldn't go. Like it wouldn't cover it for whatever reason. So I thought the worst. I'm like, I don't know how to get better.
And I remember you said they sent you home with a bag of medicine. Tell me what that was like.
Well, that was the other thing. Yeah. Well, they did give me a bunch of prescriptions, and I'm, following orders. I'm taking them, but now I feel worse. Like I didn't know what any of it was. They didn't really explain it. They said, "Here you go, sign here. Here's your scripts. Go get them. Follow up with the neurosurgeon." That's basically what I got.
So then Joe texts me and Gabby, I forget. Actually, no. Okay. Joe texts me and says what's happening. And I kind of sit with it and I was like, who do I know? Who do I know? Who do I know? And Bell's palsy, is incurable. Everybody always says it is what it is. It might come, it
Right.
might go, whatever. And you popped into my head. I'm like, I think maybe Gabby will know. So I reached out to Gabby and she was like, not only is this my specialty, I just helped a woman who had quadruplets heal in a week. We'll get to that in a second. And I go, holy moly, like this is insane. How do I have the perfect person for Joe just like that? And they both live in Florida, very nearby. This was just God just making it so easy. So, Joe, when I told you I had somebody, what did you think?
Well, loving you like I do, you said you have to go see Gabby and say no more. I got in contact. I didn't know what she did, who she was, what she was going to do. I took your word on it, got in contact with her, and hit the road.
Hi, Gabby. So this is me trying to smile. So this isn't working. This is me blinking. This is me and my eyebrows. So yeah, and it feels like everything right here from here over is just like it's pulling. It's all tight, and I hope that helps explain.
And so
Just
from
like that.
there, you guys started working. So now, Gabby, why don't you explain what you saw with Joe and how you attacked this?
So the first thing is we had very limited amounts of time. And so I thought, okay, how am I going to make the most out of this time and be the most effective while also having this roadblock, so to speak, of the medicine that he had already started to take. It was probably about a week that you were taking the medicine. I'm not too sure, over 5 days. But anyway, what happens is as you take pharmaceuticals that help to mitigate what was happening in his body, you actually block the signal. And so I try to work around that because I'm not a doctor and I don't prescribe, I don't diagnose, I don't do any of that. I just tap in to a system that happens to be the nervous system, and it's the direct connection to God, by the way. And I don't do anything more but ask for guidance and what's the next best step for me to help this individual to get over what has happened in their life and help to understand. And the first thing that came into my mind is, gosh, we need to address the smoking. This man smokes. This man's central nervous system is under tremendous stress. And if I just look at the physical ailment of his mouth pulling, his eye not being able to shut, none of the muscles in his forehead moving, terrible pain in the occipital part of his brain. So back here in the head, I mean, he was like holding his head when I first met him. That wouldn't be the right course of events, in my opinion. The first thing that I was told to do from the higher power, because again, it's not me, is you need to first address the fact that this body is under tremendous stress and it's toxic. And if you don't start with that, then nothing else will matter, because those habits need to be changed. The habit of smoking and thinking that you are feeling better because now you're breathing really, and it's calming your system down, is actually has the opposite effect. So we take a little break after about an hour and a half, and Joe is so kind and so patient and doesn't ask questions. And I'm explaining, like, I'm going to be using these tools and I won't rupture your skin. And he's just all in, which I love. I mean, I'm going to be using these tools on your skin, you know, like,
So,
hurt.
so for anybody who's listening, the clavi therapy, in this Polish therapy that she learned, you use these like long nails. They're like hammer and nails. They're huge. And she's putting them on points, almost like acupuncture. And yeah, and they look sharp.
They are, but they never rupture the skin. They are. So here's Joe, totally engaged. He's participating. And I want to bring this up because this is so important. When you participate in life, life is always on your side. And I felt like we were, do you know when you're under so much stress to perform at like a baseball game and you're like the star player? Because I've worked on so many professional athletes, I feel that viscerally in my body. Like before a big game or before a Super Bowl or before anything that matters in their career, I feel this energy. And I felt like he showed up like that to like the game of his life. And I didn't tell him exactly the algorithm that I was doing, but I was actually working the brain centers for addiction. We took a little break after about an hour and a half on the first day, and he comes back and he says, you know, I went outside for some air, because I said, go outside, take a nice walk, get some air, and then we'll meet in 15 minutes. And he says, I went to smoke, but I don't know, the cigarette kind of tasted funny.
What?
Yeah.
So you didn't tell him that you were working on the smoking stuff.
I didn't. And here's the reason why I don't say everything. Not because I'm hiding anything in a way, but because sometimes you don't want to suggest something that somebody might take the wrong way, because those stories and those neural pathways are so embedded and ingrained in the brain that sometimes when I say, look, the smoking should actually be the first thing that needs to really be addressed, I feel like a wall sometimes goes up and says, well, I didn't sign up for that, you know, like, because you're so attached to your comfort zone. And that's part of being human. I mean, we want comfort. We want to feel like that's the familiar.
Yeah. And the first thing they'll say is, I can't, or get defensive. Exactly. You're right.
And have every excuse why it's not possible. They've tried it a million times. There's all these things. And anyway, so without going into that whole conversation, I said, you know what, we're just going to slowly start with the brain centers. And I mean, within reason, I explain what I'm doing, but I really put in underneath there the intention that the smoking is not supporting his central nervous system. And I always ask his body, by the way, I practice something called body talk. So when I feel somebody, I feel my limit. And so when he came back from his break, he says, these cigarettes don't taste right. I said, well, maybe it's something that you should look into. Maybe it's something that your body's rejecting. Maybe there's a better way. Have you ever thought about quitting? And as I'm doing this dialogue with the person that I'm working on, I'm actually tapping into very particular parts of the brain that are responsible for these addiction points. And in a moment, you can reprogram that story.
Wow.
In a moment, because at the lunch break, so now fast forward 2 hours later, he comes back from lunch and he says, I don't know, I felt kind of sick when I took the cigarette package out of my pocket. And I said, okay, well, maybe it's time, Joe. Maybe it's time that we reconsider the things that you're putting into your body.
As Gabby was working on me, I really just felt. Now, I've struggled with quitting smoking for a very long time and tried every different way and every excuse on why I couldn't do it. When she was working on me, she just said magic words. It just felt like that. I mean, I understand this what she was working on, but she also explained it to me in a way where, so we left for lunch and I walked out and I had my cigarettes and I'm like, I'll just have a quick smoke and we'll quit later. I pulled out the pack, I pulled out the lighter, and I literally felt like I was going to throw up. Honestly, I'm like, okay, well, let's just put them away and wait. Can I tell you how long it's been?
Yeah.
Over 140 days since I had one.
It's unbelievable. That's the longest you've ever
Since
gone?
that moment, I couldn't go a day.
Wow.
Really.
So
It's been
were
that
you so confused? I feel like I would be
Of
confused.
course, you know me, Maria. You know me, Maria. I'm like, what's that? I didn't understand. Like, it was that. I wouldn't say easy, but all it took was. I mean, Gabby changed my life.
Oh.
Saved my life. Yeah, no
Wow.
joke. And I get worked up, and that was my crutch. If I got stressed out, I'd have a smoke, and that would calm me down. Now, since then, I found other ways to calm down without going to the smoke.
What do you do?
But of course, I still get stressed out. I count to 10 backwards. I try to take a walk. I do some push-ups or some sit-ups. I'll go for a bike ride. Breathing exercises helps me a lot.
Joe Gear. Breathing
And
exercises.
Since that day.
Wow.
Since that day.
So
And I can't thank enough.
so you guys worked for how long?
3 days.
3 days. And what
Well,
did you see happening in those 3 days, Joe?
Just magic being performed, I would say. There was a spot, in my forehead somewhere. I forget exactly where. But she'd be like, okay, take your socks off. Let me try the needle thing here. And I was, at first, I'm a non-believer. I was like, as soon as she did it, my eyebrow loosened up. That's what it was. I was like, how way down on my foot did that control this?
Wow.
Right then, I was like, okay, let's,
So this is the next day after I came home from Gabby's. I'm getting my wrinkles back. I have control over that eyebrow, finally. My crow's feet are coming back, and I can see more teeth because my mouth is starting to open. And my eye is working too. Ow, ow. Looking good.
So
I'm
Gab, so
unbelievable.
that's what you were showing us with the mannequin in the last episode is you were able to trace down where that thing from the forehead went and it went to his toe. But how do you do that? How do you trace down inside someone's body when you're not in it?
So I want to go back. There's so much we can talk about here and unpack because it's as convoluted and complex as the nervous system is the same extent to how we operate. Like we are such intricate beings that you can't isolate one thing from the other, one body part, one ailment. one organ, it all works in such beautiful harmony and synchronicity that unless you really understand the energetics of a human body, which we are electrical beings, literally, we are spiritual beings. I am, without a doubt, there is no convincing. I know it for a fact. It's this inner knowing. And unless you can feel that, and by the way, I just want really quickly on a little side note to just give a little bit of a practical example. In our hands, we all have the ability to heal ourselves, all of us. We were born with this innate gift. Nobody is any different than anybody else. It's just the fact that some people have it a little bit more developed than others. And basically, before I begin, I warm up those chakras of my and I set the intention to be guided. I want to be of the best service to the person that I have in front of me because I have such reverence for people and their bodies and what they're going through. I have so much empathy and compassion for the situation that I had in Joe's body. And when we tap into this, again, going back, like we can all feel, when we do that, it starts to activate this feeling and we start to, we can go into our body literally and ask, where is it? If I have Bell's palsy, where is it that I need to address? What part of my body needs to be addressed? And I am shown, I mean, my book, my encyclopedia from the doctor that I studied in Poland is like this thick. The central nervous system, if you just Google it right now, if you have a moment and you put anatomy of the central nervous system, the map, you'll look at this thing and you'll say, what is that? And what I want to say is you can get lost in this big, intricate web of nerves. But if you just ask and focus and go into your body and say, all right, Joe has an issue with his, whatever muscle it was, I don't remember at the present moment, but where can I access this? What's the next best gateway that I can access this point? First of all, if I don't unlock the point of his eye and his cheek, it was in the left side of the body, if I remember correctly. It has to be on the right side of the brain, okay, in the frontal cortex of the brain. I have to reprogram this signal to give back the signal that the mouth has to move in a certain way, in synchronicity with the other side. The nose has to move in a certain way. The eye, the ear, all of it was affected. And when I did that, when I unlocked that part of the brain, what happened was I was shown and I was given information that that same nerve that originated in his brain actually has an ending point, literally in between his second and third toe. When I touch that point with the tool, so it's this, again, this like sharp kind of pencil-like metal tool, when I touched that point on his toe, he could feel the muscle in his forehead twitching, and he felt the muscle relax. I mean,
it's bananas.
It's amazing. It's something that is hard to even put into words because, again, it's of God. Like it's the direct connection to our spirit and our soul, and that's the level that I work at. I work at that high energetic area of our being that has no. I don't believe that there are limits to what we can do for ourselves, but what I can do also for others if the person is willing. I need the participation. But if we are both in it and we'll do whatever it takes within reason, it's amazing the results that can happen and quickly.
Yeah.
It's literally, there's no time or space. These things just happen. And it's really interesting because many times I'm asked, like, how did you do that? How did it work? And I say, I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I remember back in Miami when I was living there and I was called to work on this super high profile individual. And he was like grilling me with questions like, how does this work? And what training do you have? And who have you worked on? And what are the cases that you have proven to be successful? And I looked at him straight in the eyeballs and I said, I have no idea. He says, I like you and I like your honesty. Because how do you explain that, honestly? I mean, obviously, we can put into words the basics of what we know, but there's so much that we don't understand. And I feel that I work in that realm of that really high energetic space, the space that nobody has the answers to but the higher power.
And you're the conduit.
And I was just called to be this individual on this planet to show up with my little tools and help people and be of service.
So, Joe, in 3 days, what happens?
Well, after the first day, so my nose was like stuck sideways almost, like kind of like this as part of it. By the time we were done after the first day, it almost was back to normal. So by the time I was on my way home, I could already feel some relief, right? So after I got home, after maybe a day or two of getting readjusted, I felt so much better. I could, but when it first happened, I used to have to talk like this to hold my face up.
I remember when you called me, you were holding your face up.
So I could speak clearly, right? I didn't, after like the second or third day being home, I didn't have to do that anymore. It was still a little closed. After the first week, it was noticeable changes. I had movement back, I mean, on my eyebrow, I could almost lift it. By about the second week, not even, I had almost full range of everything.
Yeah, I remember when you went home after 3 days, you're like, my face is almost normal now. I have the timestamps too. Like it was unbelievable to see the change.
It worked.
The other thing I want to add as well is that in addition to doing the clavi therapy, I also worked on Joe's feet a lot.
Yes.
A lot. Because you have to approach the body from one end where the issue originated. So if in this case it was the face, but also to give it that full circle activation, you have to go to the polar opposite end of the body. Because if we are one big intricate electrical circuit, we can't just look at where the wire has been shorted. We have to look along the entire pathway of that wire, so to speak, of the central nervous system. And in the feet, there was tremendous amount of pressure. You wouldn't believe on the soles of our feet what we have. This is basically a micro system. I could access the areas of his feet in the sole of the foot where they were affected on both feet, by the way. I don't just look on, left foot corresponds to the left side of your body and the right foot generally is the right side, but I look at the entire system. And I just want to add to this is that I work with a lot of other practitioners wherever I go. If I'm called to travel, whether it's to LA or to Europe, to wherever I go, I always research the best experts in soft tissue, in osteopathic medicine, in acupuncture, because I like to incorporate what every modality brings to the table. Not one modality is for everybody. I'm not the end all and be all for everybody. I can help you tremendously. And then maybe once you've, when I've reached my limit as to what I can do to help you, there is somebody else now I can pass the baton to and say, listen, you need now tissue manipulation, for example, because I also worked on the soft tissue of his face to relax those muscles. So I literally got in there with my fingers and I started massaging all the muscles to elongate them because they had been so compressed, so tight that you needed that manual work to restore the plasticity of that muscle. Wow. So I just add that because I think it's really important that I never believe, I've never ever said that, what I do is the end all. Everybody that you have on your show, every concept that you bring on, and everybody else in the world that does good work with good intention is beautiful. It's all wonderful. And there's a time and place for every type of therapy. Every therapist brings something to the table, but also every experience that you're going through in your healing journey is necessary. There are no mistakes. There are no coincidences as to, in this case here, why Joe and I had to meet.
Yeah.
The Bell's palsy was his blessing.
It really was, because there have been things subsequently that have happened that if you were still smoking, Joe might have been even worse. Joe was healed of the Bell's palsy, and I know he is super grateful, but I am super grateful because I know that you activated so quickly on my behalf, and I just kept telling Joe, do whatever she says. And and he was like, she's an angel. He was texting me, and the two of you had such a good connection that was really special. But it's hard not to. He's a unique one, and you are obviously a unique one. Joe, I'll let you have one last word, and then I'm going to move on to hear about another woman that Gabby healed of Bell's palsy as well.
Well, I'm thankful to you, Maria, for introducing me to Gabby. When there was no other alternative for me, I didn't believe anything was going to get fixed. And Gabby, you are an angel. I love you with all my heart.
Oh,
Joe, I love you so much.
I really do. I'm not very good at my words, but I really love you. You saved my life and changing me. I can't thank you enough. If there's anything you ever need, I'm there. I don't care where you are. I'm on my way.
hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.